Plot to seize Labour votes.
Nightmare for Keir Starmer as Reform launches bombshell new plan to storm Labour North Heartland. Reform UK has revealed a new common-sense plan outlined by its deputy leader Richard Tice to win over the blanket of Labour votes in the North. This announcement follows the shocking new poll showing that 28% of voters had a very or quite positive view of Reform UK, whereas only 27% felt the same way about Labour. This puts public support of the party, with only 5 MPs, ahead of the government. We at Reform will destroy them at the polls and we will take dozens of Labour heartland seats, says Richard Tice, speaking on the next general election in 2029. The poll conducted by JL Partners on October 11th to 13 also shows that Nigel Farage, Reform UK's leader, is a whopping 3 points more popular than the Prime Minister. Farage won more than 27% of the people asked compared to Sir Keir Starmer's 24%. Speaking to Express.co.uk, Tice says how just 5 of us have made such noise and are such a threat to them. Reform UK made a dramatic statement at the 2024 general election, winning over 4 million votes. Yet due to the first-past-the-post system, the party returned with just 5 seats. The MPs are Nigel Farage, Richard Tice, Lee Anderson, Rupert Lowe, and James McMurdoch. Speaking to GB News this morning, the party's deputy leader laid out his simple plan to secure a bigger win at the next election. It's very simple. Our policies are common sense, says the Reform MP. Tice says his policies send a simple message of patriotism to current Labour voters, and they will target pubs and clubs up and down the country. Closure of Scunthorpe's blast furnaces will see over 2,000 job losses. Image Getty. Labour's heartland is already warming to this approach as Reform UK hone in on the closure of blast furnaces in Lincolnshire. This Labour government must not dare to entertain the closure of the last UK blast furnace in Scunthorpe, says Tice. He adds, "We will be completely uncompetitive if they close them." The Reform MP held a debate in Westminster Hall to hold the government to account after British Steel brought forward the closures. They instead wish to replace them with an electric arc furnace, EAF, as part of its decarbonisation plans. This move is putting over 2,000 jobs at risk in the current Labour seat. Keir Starmer must not dare plough ahead with key policy as Reform issues blunt warning. Reform UK's deputy leader Richard Tice has delivered a stern statement to the government if it does not put a stop to blast furnace closures. Thousands of UK workers fear they are at risk of being laid off before Christmas as British Steel prepares to bring forward its closure plans. "I will literally eat their lunch if they shut them down," says Richard Tice. British Steel, owned by Chinese company Jingyi, announced in 2023 that it will close down its blast furnaces in Scunthorpe, putting over 2,000 jobs at risk. This Labour government must not dare to entertain the closure of the last UK blast furnaces in Scunthorpe, he adds. They will be replaced by 2 electric arc furnaces, one at Scunthorpe and one at Teesside. Bosses at British Steel have insisted the move is needed to create a clean, green, and sustainable business. Electric arc furnaces offer the ability to recycle scrap steel using clean electricity, unlike blast furnaces which rely on coal. However, Reform UK's deputy leader insists the move will make not a blind bit of a difference to the environment. New polling from JL Partners shows the public have a more positive view on Reform UK than the government. And now the 5-man party have their sights set on gaining safe Labour seats in the next general election. Speaking to the Express.co.uk, Tice said, "We at Reform will destroy them at the polls and we will take dozens of Labour heartland seats if they shut them down. Just 5 of us have made such noise and are such a threat to them that I don't think the government will dare allow what they have said will happen to happen. We have a 5-point plan which will preserve and protect the future of British steelmaking." The Reform MP held a debate in Westminster Hall to hold the government to account after British Steel brought forward the closures where Tice outlined his plan. The first point is to accelerate the steel strategy to release before Christmas, with the second point being to guarantee that Scunthorpe blast furnaces remain operational with the government taking a stake in British Steel. Thirdly, Tice proposed a scrap of all current and proposed carbon taxes. The fourth point is to stop Chinese steel dumping with substantial tariffs on imported steel. And the fifth and final point is to ensure the UK public sector projects buy British manufactured steel as a matter of course. Labour breaks another manifesto pledge and no one is surprised. This will cost us £57 billion. After weeks of speculation, Reeves is set to confirm that she will amend Britain's debt rules to raise another £57 billion to spend on long-term infrastructure projects, which is exactly what she promised not to do during the election. Oh well, there goes another one. Yep, Labour is going on another borrowing spree, with taxpayers ultimately footing the bill, although Reeves won't sell it like that. Reeves is expected to tell the International Monetary Fund that next week's autumn budget will include a fresh method for assessing the UK's national debt. This jazzy new accounting method will suddenly make the debt look smaller. And when it does, a heap of extra cash will appear and Reeves will spend it. It's almost as if she's finally found that magic money tree. But in reality, she's only playing with numbers and taking an almighty punt with our money. Labour's 2024 general election manifesto said Reeves would follow two rules. First, the current budget would be in balance, with day-to-day spending met by revenues. Second, the national debt must be falling as a share of the economy by the fifth year of the economic forecast. That's the rule Reeves is ditching by changing the definition of debt. She'll do this by sticking a value on all the things the government owns, such as roads, parks, and even unpaid student loans, and offsetting these against the money it owes. The debt will still be there, of course. Plus, the extra £57 billion Reeves plans to spend will just be adding it up differently. This is a rule Reeves called ironclad in the election, but hey, that was months ago. Former PM Rishi Sunak has claimed that Reeves herself had described this as fiddling the figures. It's as good a phrase as any. The respected Institute for Fiscal Studies is also concerned, saying that it is hard to avoid the suspicion that Labour was tempted to change the rule by the fact that it would allow for significantly more borrowing for investment. You bet. Reeves certainly wouldn't be changing the rules if it made the debt look bigger and allowed her to spend less. Labour doesn't care what voters think. But they do care about the government bond market, which keeps a close eye on these things. The bond market is the bedrock of the financial system. The UK borrows hundreds of billions each year by issuing bonds to investors all over the world who want a low-risk return. Anything a bit dodgy, like former Tory PM Liz Truss's chaotic mini-budget in September 2022, scares the hell out of them. And they demand a lot more interest for lending us money. That's why mortgage rocketed past 6% when Truss announced a heap of tax cuts funded by borrowing, and she was out of number 10 after just 49 days. Nobody messes with the bond market, especially a country like the UK that is drowning in debt, owing a staggering £2.6 trillion in total. That's roughly the size of our entire economic output for a year. The bond market is already looking spooked by Reeves' shenanigans. We know that because our borrowing costs are rising on the news of her magic trick. UK gilt yields fell to 3.75% last month as investors anticipated lower inflation and interest rates. This morning they hit 4.2%. That's a big jump for bond yields, which are not supposed to be volatile. Pantheon Macroeconomics warned yesterday that interest rates would be up to 0.5% higher over the next financial year as a result. This could add £1,250 a year to the cost of servicing a £250,000 mortgage. That's an extra £105 a month. Reeves will justify the move by saying she's borrowing to invest, rather than to cover day-to-day spending. Up to a point, she's right. The UK hasn't invested anywhere near enough for years. If her luck holds, the money raised will more than pay for itself by getting the economy moving. If it doesn't, it's Liz Truss all over again. And nobody in their right mind wants that.